5 years after Lena and Ava disappeared deep in the Ridgeway Woods, a drone flying over the same forest captured something no one could explain. In the middle of a fog-covered clearing, a cabin no map had ever shown. And just for a second, someone moved past the doorway. Pale, thin, almost human. When search teams followed the coordinates, they found the cabin exactly as seen, decayed, empty, except for 2 names carved into the wall. Lena plus Ava. But what really made everyone freeze was the final frame from the drone, showing one of the girls standing behind the pilot, whispering something no one's been able to understand since. Before we go any further, if this is your first time here, we'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Your support means the world and helps us bring you even more powerful stories. Stick with us until the end, and if this mystery moves you, share your thoughts in the comments and pass it along to a friend. You know, sometimes a place feels alive, not because of people, but because it remembers them. That's how Ridge Pine Forest feels. Thick air, heavy silence, trees that bend like they're listening. Back in 2018, 2 girls, Amara Lewis, 14, and Grace Miller, 15, walked into those woods just before noon. They were inseparable, always seen together. Hoodies half-zipped, headphones shared, laughter bouncing between them like it could never run out. They told their parents they were heading out for a school photography project. Their assignment was simple: capture nature in transition. No one knew that would be their final frame. That morning was warmer than usual for early spring. Amara's mom remembered her daughter standing by the window, tying her shoes, saying, "We'll be back before dinner." Grace joked about bringing bug spray. They were so full of energy, that buzzing teenage kind, too curious for their own safety. The girls biked to the trailhead near Hollow Path, an area most locals avoided. Every town has its stories, right? In Ridge Pine, the legend was that Hollow Path was never in the same place twice. Hikers claimed the woods shifted. The trails rearranged themselves when the sun dropped. Some folks swore it was just fog. Others said it was the forest keeping secrets. Around 2 p.m., the first raindrops started to fall. A light drizzle, barely noticeable. They texted their group chat, a photo of Grace standing near a moss-covered rock. Caption: "Found something cool." That message would be the last anyone ever received. By 6 p.m., Amara's parents began calling. No answer. By 8 p.m., they drove to Grace's house, worried. Both girls' bikes were still chained near the trail sign. The forest behind them hummed with the quiet of dusk, that strange silence that doesn't belong to nature, but to absence. The next morning, search teams arrived. Volunteers combed the woods in neat lines. Dogs sniffed through mud and leaves. Helicopters hovered overhead. They found Amara's backpack wedged between roots near a creek. Its zipper was torn, as if yanked open. Inside, her camera, 1 water bottle, and a notebook with a single phrase scribbled across the page. The air changed. People started whispering in diners and gas stations. Some said the girls had run away. Others blamed wild animals. But one old man, Mr. Reeves, a retired ranger, said something different. He leaned across the counter at the local cafe and muttered, "That place, it keeps what it wants." Days turned into weeks. Posters faded on lampposts. Their parents held on to hope, organizing candlelight vigils near the forest entrance. The candles flickered, always bending toward the trees, like the forest was breathing out. Rumors grew. Kids at school said they'd seen lights floating in Ridge Pine after midnight. A delivery driver swore he saw 2 figures standing by the edge of the road, dripping wet, staring into the dark. The police dismissed it all. Hoaxes, they said, but everyone could feel it. Something inside that forest had shifted. By the 3rd week, search operations scaled down. Authorities said there was nothing more to find. Reporters packed up their gear. Only the sound of distant woodpeckers and rustling leaves remained. But people still talked. Every small town thrives on gossip, and Ridge Pine was no different. 2 women at the grocery store whispered behind a display of canned beans, "You know, Grace's mother shouldn't have let them go alone." And Amara? That girl always had her head in the clouds. Curiosity killed the cat. They didn't realize her cousin was standing right behind them, jaw tight, hands trembling. Weeks bled into months. The town moved on. Birthdays, fairs, Sunday services. But Ridge Pine never forgot. Whenever someone hiked too deep, their phones lost signal near that same creek. And if you listened close enough, on calm nights, some swore they heard 2 voices laughing faintly, fading into the wind. 5 years would pass before anyone dared to step back into that part of the woods again. 5 years. That's how long Ridgepine carried the silence. The posters had long peeled off the telephone poles. The vigils stopped, the reporters moved on, and the names Amara and Grace turned into something like folklore, only mentioned when the nights got too quiet, or when parents wanted to scare their kids away from the woods. Their families couldn't bear to stay. The Millers moved to a small coastal town 3 states away. Amara's mother sold their house after one last walk through her daughter's room, untouched, except for the camera strap still hanging by the bedpost. She said she could still smell her perfume. A faint mix of berries and cheap drugstore vanilla. It lingered, like memory refusing to fade. The town, though, the town learned to forget. That's what people do when something doesn't make sense. They build stories to fill the gaps. Ridgepine diners were filled with theories. Some said the girls had run off together, that they wanted to make a name for themselves on the internet and got lost trying. Others whispered about human traffickers, or a reclusive hermit living deep in the forest. A few even blamed something old, the same way the elderly used to talk about the forest swallowing people whole. That place was cursed before we were born, one fisherman told his buddy at the bar. You remember when the dogs wouldn't step past Hollow Creek during the search? Yeah, the other man replied, shaking his head. It's not just trees in there, man. It's something else. Most brushed it off as drunk talk, but no one ever went near Hollow Path again, except one man, Ethan Cross. He wasn't a local. He was an online content creator, a nature vlogger who spent weekends exploring abandoned trails and ghost towns. His channel, Skyside Adventures, wasn't huge, but his passion made him stand out. He loved finding beauty in forgotten places, old rail bridges, frozen lakes, decaying barns. The kind of places that made you feel small. One spring afternoon, while planning his next upload, Ethan stumbled upon an old post about the missing girls. The photo caught his eye. 2 teens smiling, holding cameras, sunlight breaking through the trees behind them. The caption read, "Last seen near Ridgepine Forest." Something about that image, the contrast between innocence and mystery, drew him in. He wasn't looking for ghosts. He just thought, maybe I can film the forest, tell their story, keep their memory alive. So he drove to Ridgepine. Camera bags in the back seat, drone batteries charging, 1 flask of coffee on the dashboard. The road curved endlessly, trees closing in like a tunnel. The sign at the town's edge had faded. Welcome to Ridgepine, founded 1874, half covered in moss. When he arrived, people stared. New faces always drew attention here. At a small diner, he sat down for lunch, trying to make small talk with the waitress, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and tired hands. When he mentioned he was filming in Ridgepine Forest, her lips tightened. You one of those YouTube fellas? Yeah, just doing some landscape shots, he said with a smile. Well, she leaned closer, lowering her voice. You best stay away from Hollow Path. You go there, you'll come back different, if you come back at all. He laughed softly, thinking she was joking. But her eyes didn't. Neither did the old man sitting 2 stools down, muttering under his breath. Same fool curiosity that took those girls. That night, Ethan checked into a rundown lodge by the edge of town. Rain tapped softly against the window. He opened his laptop and planned the drone flight paths over Ridgepine. His cursor hovered over the marked coordinates from the news archive, the last known location of Amara and Grace. He hesitated, then whispered, almost to himself, I'll just take a look. The next morning, he hiked to the ridge where the forest thickened. The air felt colder there, unnaturally still. He unfolded his drone, checked the wind, and hit launch. The hum of the blades cut through the silence like a heartbeat. He watched the screen as the camera rose above the tree line, a sea of green, endless and calm. For 20 minutes, nothing strange happened. Just nature, raw and untouched. Then, something caught his eye. At the far end of the feed, near a creek bend, stood what looked like a figure. Motionless, upright, facing upward. He leaned closer to the monitor. It wasn't moving. He zoomed in, trying to focus. The image flickered. For a split second, he thought he saw 2 figures, small, side by side. Ethan blinked. Static crawled across the screen, then cleared. Nothing there. Just trees. Huh, he muttered, rubbing his temple. Must have been the light. He recalled the locals' warnings, but brushed them aside. He packed up, drove back to the lodge, and uploaded the footage. While it processed, he scrolled through online comments about the missing girls. Photos, theories, old police sketches, all preserved like open wounds on the internet. Hours later, when the footage finally rendered, Ethan clicked play. His stomach dropped. There it was again, the same spot. But this time, when he paused the frame, the light around the two shapes seemed wrong. Like the air itself bent slightly around them. He sat there, staring at the frozen image. And in the quiet of his room he whispered, "What the hell did I just see?" Ethan barely slept that night. He sat in the dim glow of his laptop, replaying the same 10 seconds of footage over and over. Each time he saw the same thing. Two faint silhouettes standing deep within the woods, still as statues. But here's the part that didn't make sense. When he zoomed in frame by frame, the trees behind the figures weren't moving normally. The branches bent slightly toward them, as if drawn in by gravity or something unseen. He leaned back in his chair, rubbed his eyes, and chuckled to himself. Man, I've been editing too long. I'm seeing things, but curiosity, that dangerous little ember that always burns brighter at night, wouldn't let him go. By morning, he was back in Ridge Pine Forest. The air smelled of wet pine and old rain. His boots sank into soft mud as he retraced the path toward the creek, the same coordinates from the drone footage. He followed the sound of running water until he reached a small clearing surrounded by twisted roots. That's when he noticed it. Something buried halfway under a pile of damp leaves. A phone. It was caked in dirt. The screen cracked, but still recognizable. The old model, an early Android from 5 years ago. He picked it up gently, brushing the mud off the back. On the case, faded but visible, were 2 small stickers, a pink heart and a film camera. He froze. He remembered those stickers from the online photos, Amara's phone. For a second, he just stood there, the forest breathing quietly around him. Then he slipped it into a plastic bag and drove straight to town. At the sheriff's office, the reaction was immediate. Sheriff Donnelly, a broad, gray-haired man with a weary expression, stared at the phone like it was a ghost. "You found this where?" "Near the creek. The coordinates match where they disappeared." Donnelly sighed, pinched the bridge of his nose, and gestured for a deputy to take the evidence bag. 5 years, he muttered. 5 damn years, and this shows up. Word spread fast. By evening, the small-town diner buzzed with whispers. 2 men hunched over coffee mugs at the counter. "You hear what that outsider found?" "Yeah," said it was one of the girls' phones. "Probably just planted there for views. Maybe, or maybe the woods are giving something back." They laughed, but their eyes didn't. Ethan tried to ignore the stares when he stepped in for dinner. He overheard a woman behind him whisper, "He shouldn't have touched it. Some things are better left buried." He ate quietly, scrolling through messages from local news outlets asking for interviews. He declined them all. That night, Sheriff Donnelly called. "Mr. Cross, we managed to get the phone powered. Most of the data's gone, but there's a video file you might want to see." Ethan drove over immediately. Inside the evidence room, the lights flickered weakly. Donnelly motioned him closer. On the monitor, a short clip played, shaky, low light, recorded on that same phone. The first few seconds showed Amara's face, breathing heavily, her flashlight trembling in the dark. Behind her, Grace whispered, "Do you hear that?" "It's calling again." The audio cracked with static. Then the camera panned toward the trees. Something moved. Not a person, not quite an animal either. It was tall, pale, and formless, like mist taking shape. The flashlight flickered. Grace gasped. Then, the screen jolted violently before cutting to black. The room went silent. Sheriff Donnelly leaned forward. "That's the last file time-stamped before they vanished." Ethan swallowed hard. The timestamp read April 12, 2018, 6:41 p.m. He checked the drone data from his laptop. The footage he'd captured, the one with the 2 standing figures, was recorded on April 12, 2023, 6:41 p.m. Exactly 5 years to the minute. His mouth went dry. That can't be coincidence. The sheriff just looked at him, uneasy. "Maybe not, but you better stay away from that forest, son. Whatever's there, it's not done with them." Ethan drove back to the lodge in silence. His mind raced, looping through the footage again. He compared both timestamps side by side, the past and the present, layered like reflections. Each flicker in the video synced perfectly with the drone's static. And just when he thought his eyes were playing tricks again, something moved in the corner of his screen. 2 faint shapes, still there, still watching. He shut his laptop and whispered under his breath, "What if they never left that place?" The air in the room felt heavy, almost electric. Outside, the wind brushed softly against the window, like fingers tapping glass. That night, Ridge Pine Forest didn't sleep. The next morning came gray and heavy, one of those Ridge Pine mornings where the sky looks like it's holding its breath. Ethan hadn't slept a minute. His mind kept replaying the same thought over and over. 5 years to the minute. 2 sets of footage. One filmed by teenage girls in 2018, one captured by his drone in 2023, both showing the same bend in the creek, the same angle of light, the same distortion crawling through the air. He sat at his desk, fingers trembling over the keyboard, dragging the files side by side. He aligned the timestamps down to the exact second. Then he hit play. For the first 20 seconds, the screens looked unrelated. One showing Amara's shaky handheld video, the other showing Ethan's drone hovering high above. But then, something happened. As Amara's flashlight flickered in the old recording, the drone footage flickered too. At the exact same rhythm, almost like the drone was reacting to a ghost of the past. Ethan felt his heartbeat slow. He rewound it, played it again. Every flicker, every gust of wind, every rustle of leaves, perfectly mirrored between 2 videos recorded 5 years apart. That shouldn't be possible. He leaned in, whispering to himself, "What the hell?" Then, the forest on Amara's phone began to distort again, the same eerie pull in the air. And at that same moment, the drone feed blurred, pixelating violently, before revealing 2 figures standing in the very spot the girls had filmed from. Only now, there was something new. A faint outline between them. A shimmer, like heat rising off asphalt. Ethan paused the video, zoomed in. The shape was tall, thin, and featureless. Almost human, but wrong. He could feel goosebumps ripple up his arms. The air in his room seemed colder, heavier. He whispered, almost apologizing to no one, "I shouldn't have gone back there." Later that day, he went to see Sheriff Donnelly again. The old man looked like he hadn't slept either. Ethan explained what he'd found, his words tumbling over each other. The sheriff didn't speak, just stared at the monitor as Ethan showed him both videos, perfectly synced. For a long moment there was silence. Then Donnelly said quietly, "I've worked 25 years in this county, seen every kind of tragedy. But this," he exhaled deeply, "this ain't human." They decided to take the footage to the state investigation unit, hoping someone could explain it. Maybe electromagnetic interference, some glitch in the data. But when the analysts ran the files through their software, they found something worse. The drone footage wasn't just mimicking the phone video. Frame by frame, it was actually layered with it. The digital metadata showed identical light conditions, humidity readings, and sound waves overlapping, as if both recordings were happening at the same moment in time. 5 years apart, but the forest recorded them as one. A young technician stared at the screen, whispering, "It's like time folded right there." Ethan felt the room tilt slightly. His hands went cold. He stepped outside for air. Outside the facility, the world felt unreal. Rain began to fall again. Soft, cold drops that carried that same faint smell of wet pine and decay. Across the parking lot, 2 old locals leaned under an awning, watching him. "That's the guy, ain't it?" "Yeah, the one digging where he shouldn't. I told you the woods don't forget." Their voices faded as Ethan climbed into his car. He started the engine but didn't drive. Instead, he sat there, staring at the reflection of the trees in his windshield, twisting and bending in the rain. He thought about the girls, about the video where they laughed before everything went dark. He imagined them still there, frozen between moments, trapped in that loop of flickering light and silence. He muttered, "If time really folded, then maybe they never left at all." That night, back at the lodge, he set up his drone again, this time determined to return. He needed proof, something undeniable. He packed batteries, extra SD cards, and his camera. His hands shook slightly as he zipped the bag shut. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, the kind that sounds too far away to be real, but close enough to rattle your chest. He looked at the forest line through the window, the black silhouette of trees swaying gently under the stormlight. It felt like they were waiting for him. He whispered, "Just one more flight, then I'm done." He didn't know that this next flight would be the last anyone ever heard from him. The next morning began with a strange stillness. No birds. No crickets. Not even the faint whisper of wind through the trees. Derek leaned against his truck, coffee steaming in his hand, staring at the coordinates on the drone controller. His face was pale, jaw tight. The footage they recovered last night looped over and over in his head. The pale figure moving between the trees, and that faint laughter. He hadn't said a word since they shut off the screen. By noon, the town had already heard about the thing the drone spotted. 2 teenagers at the cafe whispered about it loud enough for everyone to hear. They said it looked like one of the missing girls, right? No, it was taller, like something that used to be human. The waitress refilled coffee cups slower than usual. Even the old men who always argued about politics were silent that day. By dusk, Derek and the search team were standing on the old forest edge again, near the line where the drone had gone dark. They moved slowly, lanterns cutting through the fog like small suns. Each step felt heavier than the last. The deeper they went, the more it felt wrong. The air turned damp and thick, smelling of rust and wet moss. Their radios crackled in broken bursts. The compass needles jittered like trapped insects. Then they saw it. A clearing. Wide, circular, unnatural, as if something had carved it open from above. In the middle stood a small wooden cabin. Old, leaning, roof sunken in, covered in vines. No one remembered a cabin being there. Derek approached first, flashlight trembling in his hand. He paused at the door, touched the handle. Cold metal burned his skin. Inside, silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Dust floated in the beam of his light, swirling like snow. Broken furniture, rotted wood, and on the far wall, 2 names, carved deep into the planks. Lena plus Ava, the missing girls. His chest tightened. He backed away slowly, whispering, "It's them. It's really them." Then his light flickered, and behind him, a faint shuffle. He spun around. Something moved across the doorway, quick, low, like a shadow dragging itself upright. It stood there, just outside the threshold, and in that split second of flickering light he saw her face. Or what used to be her face. It was Lena, or something wearing her shape. Eyes wide, skin pale as ash, hair matted with mud. She stared at him like she'd been waiting all this time. Then the light went out. When the others found Derek hours later, he was sitting in the clearing alone, staring at the empty cabin door. No Lena, no Ava, no sound. Just the echo of his own heartbeat and a half-buried camera lens beside his foot. The footage from that lens, recovered days later, showed Derek stepping into the cabin, then turning toward the wall, then something tall and white stepping out of the shadows behind him. The last frame froze mid-motion, Lena's face inches from the lens, whispering something impossible to hear. Narration fades. 5 years. That's how long those girls were gone, before the forest gave anything back. And what it gave wasn't really human anymore. Now, even after all this time, hikers still report hearing laughter deep in the woods, right before their GPS signals die. They say the forest doesn't want to be found. It just wants you to remember who vanished inside it. What do you think really happened to Lena and Ava out there in Ridgeway Woods? Were they trying to find their way home, or guarding something we were never meant to see? Let me know what you believe in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, hit follow, because the next one, it's even darker.